And welcome back to the bunker. Down here thinking as usual. And I just posted Wonder Boys, which is a explication of my life from the 90s through to the present day. Wonder Boys film and novel before that, released, published March 14th, 1995 by Michael Chabon. Kind of mirrored my life in a lot of ways. It felt when I watched it. I could identify very deeply with the author. Grady Tripp is the character, and the role model for him was Chuck Kinder, a creative writing professor at the University of Pittsburgh, under whom Michael Chabon studied. And he's just joined us on Substack as well. Michael Chabon has. Chuck has left us in 2019, and I was sitting in an audience when I met him for my friend Lewis Buddy Norden, also a creative writing professor at Pitt, known as the Clown Prince of Southern Literature, who had passed away on April 13th, 2012. This was August 25th, 2012, when the memorial service for Buddy was held, and Chuck made his way to the podium. He was struggling a bit because he had had a stroke, and he introduced himself as "I'm what's left of Chuck Kinder," which I found very endearing from the get go. I had misheard his name as Tinder, and I asked him to clarify it. He gave me it, and I looked him up and found out that he had been the role model for Grady Tripp. And then I, learned more as I went along that he had been friends with Raymond Carver, and he had told a story about punking Raymond Carver, and I give that story in the course of this little post. I won't spoil it for you now. I've been reading Carver on the flight there, so I found that very like, wow, how could this kind of synchronicity, this kind of serendipity just emerge out of the pleroma? And it did, and it does. The pleroma. Maybe you're not familiar with the word pleroma. A lot of you probably are. And I don't mean to talk down to anybody if you're not familiar with pleroma as a term. It comes from Gnosticism, and it's the idea of the fullness of God. And I think I need to explain a little bit about why I constantly post these things that come across my radar, usually on Facebook, about Mayor Baba. Mayor Baba was a man who was born in the 19th century and died in 1969. He dropped the body, as they say at that time. He went into silence 100 years ago tomorrow, the day of silence for his followers. And he communicated with an alphabet board initially and then with a gestural language. And he happened to know, and well, or just, I'm not sure how it came about entirely, but as a young man, the director of religious life at my college, Randolph Macon, at the time I was there, and the sponsor of Amnesty International and Waging Peace, um, Charles Haynes, who wrote a book called The Awakener about Mayor Baba, he came into Mayor Baba's circle and was part of it. And there's a really endearing picture of Charles as a young man, very young child, really, hugging Mayor Baba. Now, Mayor Baba was also the inspiration to Pete Townsend through, I think Terry Riley is the one who really turned Pete on to Mayor Baba. Terry Riley just recently celebrated a milestone birthday. I forget if it was 90 or more. And he was a minimalist composer. He's the Riley of Baba O'Reilly that The Who wrote, as most of you are probably familiar with it. Maybe you know it as Teenage Wasteland if you're not familiar with the exact titles of Who songs, but it's one of the bigger hits off of the Who's Next album, if I remember correctly. And of course, Tommy came before Who's Next, which was actually going to be a Lifehouse project, which later Lifehouse Chronicles came out. But all of these things weave together, is my point, I guess. And I am interested in all these things. I have a hard time believing that any of us is God incarnate, but yet the light that is within us, what is it? Our consciousness, what is it? If it's not God, if it's not the creator of all things. I think about that a lot in terms of how I label things. And I was talking about that a little bit earlier today. Again, these tend to be a little jumpy in how my mind tends to work from one thing to the next that I've been exposed to over time. I'm just grateful to be here. I'm grateful to be anywhere. I believe it's actually also 30 years to the day since the Chicago Soldiers Field show of the Grateful Dead. That was their last one. And I think about all the ripple effects that have come out of that. If you look in the BBC, you might find an article there about how the Grateful Dead had a lot to do with the internet and the way it's grown. And, one of the lyricists was one of the founders of the Electronic Frontiers Foundation that tries to keep it free and open and protect free speech on the internet and the freedom to know things, the right to know. You know, among other things, I'm a big fan of Mark Maron, who has the WTF podcast. It's in its last few iterations now. It's been going for 16 years. And in it, Mark actually in his stand up talks about how back in the day, if you happen to think about this guy who had a lot to do with peanuts and he had three names and what was it? And you like would have to call somebody up and maybe leave a message on their answering machine trying to figure out, peanut guy, three names, who was it? And that guy who gets your message might have to then run over to the library and look it up and then call you back and say, hey, it was George Washington Carver. You sounded like you really needed to know. So I ran over to the library and looked it up. Now I can just sit here with my computer or my phone and find out immediately. Oh, it's George Washington Carver. Did all this great stuff with peanuts. If you don't know the story, it's worth looking into. So many things are worth looking into. Rabbit holes, right? Somebody was actually posting about rabbit holes, and I forwarded that note, and a bunch of people liked it because we can jump around a lot. But then we can dive deep on things too, and we can structure our stories. And I've been doing that in the last few posts about my life in Pittsburgh, my life in Denmark, a bit about my life since Denmark. I moved back here September 30th, 2002, took a job soon after at the Naval Weapons Station in Yorktown with the Ordnance Information System. I was just tracking everything that blows up in the Navy that isn't nuclear. I was working under an ex-Navy SEAL who would go kickboxing on his lunch hour and got his cybernetics degree in his spare time. I've met a lot of really interesting people over my life. And I'm just sort of bouncing through it all, right? Like a bouncing ball. And I think about that sometimes, just like this little ball here. This is a sphere of copper that I picked up from Trance Metals some time ago, and I just love it. It's like 1 kilogram, 2.2 pounds of copper, 100 grams. And I'm just like that. We're just like that. We're just these organization of little cells and other critters that help those cells live and propagate themselves. One of the things that I do talk about sometimes too, speaking of propagating, I don't have any kids. And sometimes I regret that. Sometimes I think, well, I'm not contributing to the overpopulation problem. Another thing that comes up though for me is a lot of women I've been with in the past, in subsequent relationships did have kids. And if I'd stayed with them, they might not exist, those kids, not in the way they are. And so I've contributed that by non action, by practicing absence rather than presence, for instance. That's another thing that comes across my mind from time to time, looking at the clock, 3:12 now. I've got to go pick up my wife shortly. She was disappointed we weren't going to have children, and happened, rather rapidly after we got married. We tried, but then autoimmune hepatitis came along, then a stroke, and it's wasn't in the cards for us. But what I do with that, I'm wearing my unlimited devotion hat here. Um, I try to give a scholarship every year to Camp One Rainbow, which is something founded by Wavy Gravy. This is the Wavy Gravy movie, Saint Misbehavin', and it's autographed by Wavy himself. You can see it, under my finger, and by the director, Michelle Ezrick, and their son, Jahanara, not Michelle's, but Jahanara Maramni, and Wavy Gravy's son, Jordan, who was named initially Howdy Do Good. Howdy Do Good I forget the full name now, so I'm not coming back to me, but it was pretty truck stop, Tomahawk Truck Stop. That's right. Um, how do you do good Tomahawk Truck Stop gravy? And there's Shannara's autograph there. She's with Wavy. And if you know Star Trek, the original series, she was in the Shadow of the Gun as the love interest for Chekhov when they get transported back to the OK Corral. Um, we're all woven into each other's lives. I have met them. I don't really know them very personally, but um, Jordan actually was good enough to come over to the little Italian place across from the Ardmore Music Hall at the 2019, I think, Unlimited Devotion weekend and meet me because I had helped them get over the $10,000 mark on a fundraiser they were doing for the camp by giving $124 contribution, which is like my magic number, 24 or 124. My issue number in the Fife and Drum Corps is 124. Tomorrow at 10 o'clock, I'm going to be talking to Skip Healy, who is a fifer and has a fife and drum background. I do also. I'm the creator of the Fife and Drum Corps fans group on Facebook. And I try to make sure I do what I can to amplify signals through the noise. That's what fifers do. I was showing you all the other day one of my fifes. This is the one I played in the Pride Parade here in DC. And for Pride of America, Fife and Drum Corps, we were one of the lead units. And that was just a lot of fun. I'm an ally. I'm very much, the white, blue-eyed, blonde, straight guy. But I really believe that the diversity is really wonderful and that we collectively make this beautiful tapestry by weaving the threads of our lives into each other. 12 minutes now I've been talking, and I can talk. Let's find out a little bit about what's going on with Peter Drucker for the day. I've got to get into better discipline of these habits I have. I'm spotty in them. I'm inconsistent, but I am what I am. I accept me just the way I am. And you can accept me too, or not, depending on where your predilections go. But I hope you'll accept me because I accept you. I do have my wife a lot. I accept her just the way she is. And she said, well, there's a few little things about you I'd like to tweak. I don't blame her. But I do appreciate the feedback. And you all can feedback too. By the way, you can leave a comment, you can subscribe. Free subscribers are most welcome, of course. Paid subscribers are, oh my God, it's overwhelming when somebody will actually pay to support my writing, to support my videos, to support my audios, to support all this work that I'm putting out there. And it is the work. And I'll get into G.I. Gurdjieff and the work some other time in the fourth way. If you're not familiar with those things yet, there's another rabbit hole for you. I haven't even gone down that rabbit hole very far. I'm trying to figure out what day it is. It's the 9th of July. It is the day before Silence Day, 100th anniversary of Mayor Baba's silence. 9th of July. Each organization must innovate. We are all organizations. So Peter Drucker says this: every organization needs one core competence, innovation. Core competencies are different for every organization. They are, so to speak, part of the organization's personality. But every organization, not just businesses, need one core competence, innovation. And every organization needs a way to record and appraise its innovation performance. In organizations already doing that, among them several top flight pharmaceutical manufacturers, the starting point is not the company's own performance. It is the careful record of the innovation in the entire field during a given period. Which of them were truly successful? How many of them were ours? Is our performance commensurate with our objectives, with the direction of the market, with our market standing, with our research spending? Are our successful innovations in the areas of greatest growth and opportunity? How many of the truly important innovation opportunities did we miss? Why? Because we did not see them, or because we saw them but dismissed them, or because we botched them? And how well do we do in converting an innovation into a commercial product? A good deal of that, admittedly, is assessment rather than measurement. It raises rather than answers questions, but it raises the right questions. The action point for the day: keep a careful record of innovations in your area and periodically assess your organization's innovation performance. That's from Management Challenges for the 21st Century from the Daily Drucker. I really enjoy the Daily Drucker. Patti Smith is also a fan of. I'm a fan of hers. I don't think she knows I exist. Maybe she does. Who knows? Her daughter knows I exist. We just exchanged a couple of messages, which was really nice. Jesse's going through some stuff right now, Jessie Paris Smith, and we all wish her well. I hope that she can be on the other side of whatever is distracting her. We won't go into that, it's personal, but she's told us, and I really do appreciate the fact that she's on Substack. I almost said Facebook. Facebook to me is dying. I don't know about you. Ah, okay. This is June. I need to get to 9th of July. This is the book of days, by the way, that I'm digging through here to see what is going on 9th of July. Ah, she gives us the photograph of an American Prayer by Jim Morrison. And on top of Butterflies by Cat something. 9th of July. Do you know we exist? That's a quotation. And then underneath of that, the scream of the butterfly silenced in Paris, July 1971. I assume that that is because July 1971 is when Jim Morrison passed away. I think he was in a bathtub at the time. And he gave us a lot, right? 27 years old, as so many were. And he's gone. The Doors of Perception. That's where it comes from. Aldous Huxley's book. And Aldous Huxley, I could go on about him as well. He was significant in many ways. He passed away on November 22nd, 1963, same day as C.S. Lewis and John F. Kennedy, of course, being assassinated that day. I was on my way to Orange, Virginia then to see my grandmother and grandfather, and with my parents, as I recall, when the news came over the radio in our car, um, which probably was a Pontiac Tempest that we had back then. I don't remember that car. When I was 3, my father got a Ford Fairlane 500 station wagon and would replace that with a Ford Torino station wagon in 1971, the year Jim Morrison died. So this has been a little bit of me and the view from the bunker. I probably could go on. I've got other things around me that I could read from. But let's suffice to say that I think that we're all in this together. We can shift the needle. We could be conscious of how we spend. We could divest ourselves from the mainstream media, which is really a propaganda arm of the political parties out there. And we could focus on how we can be effective in helping each other. I'm going to go out and do a little bit of that by helping my wife get home. She's at work right now at the Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership in the National Press Club building down on 14th Street in F. If you're ever down in D.C., that's where she works, and she does about 3 days a week there. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., as mentioned briefly, I'll be interviewing Skip Healy, who will be in Switzerland at 4 p.m. his time. We'll be talking about fife and drum, flute making, his podcast, Empty Pockets. And if you're interested in flute, Skip's a man. So give him some support too. And what else do I want to say? Well, I do appreciate everyone here and really hope you'll read Wonder Boys, the latest post that I've got out there. And yeah, have a good life. It's a temp job. We're all here for a brief time, and no one gets out alive. I think Morrison might have said that himself. So think about the anniversaries today. Think about joining in a day of silence tomorrow, potentially. I'm going to try to do as much of that as I'm able. I've certainly been running my mouth a lot lately, and sometimes it's just sound waves bouncing off the eardrums or photons bouncing off the retinas. But it's a chance, if I put it out there, that it might resonate and it might have some echo effects, some ripple effects. In fact, this film I was showing you earlier, Saint Misbehaving, really uplifting. 2009 is now in its 10th anniversary edition. 2019, I have a copy of that here. There it is. And it's got additional materials, an interview with Wavy and Ja from 2019. Just great kind of uplifting story that Wavy's got there. And yeah, Ripple Effect Films. Send it out there. I could draw up a lot of other things. Been reading again Phil Lesh's memoir, Searching for the Sound. And yeah, I've been reading particularly about the time around 84, which is both when Phil got married and when Jerry was hitting the skids a lot, and when I saw them in concert. The two times I saw them were back to back, Charlotte, Richmond, 1984. Hitched down to Charlotte from Ashland, Virginia, hitched back, ran into the Dead's equipment trucks at a rest stop outside of probably Raleigh, Durham, on the way back to Richmond. And yeah, it was just a really great adventure, but I never really saw them again. I wasn't so much Deadhead, right? I was more into King Crimson. Yes, more the prog rock kind of stuff. Incredible String Band had caught my attention, and Fairport Convention as well. So a little bit of that English folk rock kind of stuff. Yesterday, I spent some time watching Becoming Led Zeppelin, the new Netflix documentary, with my friend Jack. Jack happens to know Robert Plant, or at least has had opportunity to have break bread with him at different events, particularly that involve the I think it's called Lamped, about advocacy for immigrants. His wife was very involved in that, as was Emmy Lou Harris, Steve Earle, a bunch of other people, Graham Nash. Graham Nash actually got a phone call from Wavy about coming to Chicago for I think the Chicago 8 trial. And he wrote Chicago. As a result of that, we can change the world. We can change the world. We have shaped this world by the choices we've made. If we're not happy with it, well, it starts with an inside job. It's an inside job. If you don't know the song by Don Henley, Inside Job, I understand the rest of that album is even better than the title track, but it says in the course of it, your trusted servants have left you unprotected. It was an inside job. And those people in the towers, they'll keep doing it and doing it and doing it until we all wake up. Wake up. Wake up. Now, it's going back to G.I. Gurdjieff. He used to sit in silence as his audience would be waiting for him to speak, and then he would bellow out, "Wake up!" I remember that from a recounting of this habit from Alan Watts. They're great minds that have gone before us. Flawed individuals in many cases. Somebody pointed out to me that it was very problematic with Alan Watts because he was alcoholic. He died in his sleep of a heart attack related to his alcohol consumption. I don't want to judge that. I don't think it's, I think that it's all part of a picture. We can learn from his example. We can learn from Morrison's example, which I think was cocaine driven, or John Entwistle's example. So many of our artists have gone down. I'm looking now at something that's talking about how July 7th, 2 days ago, 2006, Sid Barrett died. Complications from diabetes, I think, is what I heard, and too young. I went to see the stage play by Tom Stoppard called Rock and Roll. in New York City around that time. My wife took me as a birthday present. I guess it was probably in 2007, in February. And she took me to New York City and we saw rock and roll. And that's probably right. We've only seen a few Broadway things there. I'm thinking of taking her to Harry Potter and the Cursed Child not too long from now. It's at the National Theater at the moment. I've got to make sure that she didn't buy tickets already because I'm thinking of taking her as an early birthday present. I did a silly thing and booked myself for the Baygrass Festival on her birthday. But Holly Bowling is actually the artist in residence there, or roving artist, or whatever they call that. He'll be playing in different combinations of the Baygrass Festival, and I just want to be there because I love Holly Bowling's work. One of the greatest things I feel I've done in the course of my life here, and I'm going to wrap this up in less than 5 minutes, I think, is I helped to kickstart her Seeking All That's Still Unsung album, which is instrumental, grand piano takes on Grateful Dead music, Seeking All That's Still Unsung. It's really a beautiful piece. Around that same time, it was the pandemic, right? And she was doing the Wilderness Sessions. So right before it was released, I think in October of 2020, she had traveled all these different locations with her husband in a Sprinter van and her dog, and they'd set up in these remote locations and play for like an hour and then stream them every Thursday. And if you send her $10, you got a postcard. I've got all the postcards right back behind me here somewhere and on the shelves. And that was delightful. I really did try to do what I could to move the needle a little bit for her because she's an artist. You know, they need our support. I need your support too, as the kind of artist I am. And, well, you know, at Casco Bay in Maine, she set up on the water. Beautiful setting. She got married there. And she played a set. Again, beautiful stuff. Starting out with China Cat Sunflower and ending up with I Know You Rider at the end. And as she wrapped that up, she gave a shout out to those people who had supported her Kickstarter. There were like three of us, I think, that in particular that she called out. And, you know, if I've done nothing else in my life, I've done that. If I've done nothing else, I've sent a kid to Camp on a Rainbow and, you know, helped them learn how to fall with grace and walk on stilts and do all kinds of stuff. And those kids, one of them who's there this summer, is there because I did something. We can all do something. It doesn't have to be huge. It can be just a little bit. Just nudge the needle for somebody else. I'm sure a lot of you are doing that already. I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir. And if I'm not, and if this is moving you in any direction at all, maybe that'll make another thing that is a ripple effect of my existence here on Earth since February 4th, 1963, 3:21 in the morning when I arrived. I think about all these things a lot. I don't know if I'm obsessive compulsive, what it is, but I think it's reflective. I think it's important to be awake, to be aware of being here in the moment is a freaking miracle. That any of us are here is a miracle. Don't take it for granted. Be grateful for it. If you're in pain, if you're suffering, what I try to do with that, and my wife will tell you, I rarely have a feeling that I don't report out on. I try to enjoy my suffering. Then I'll have lots of enjoyment because it's going to be here, like this itch on my shoulder. I reported out on that. Scratched the itch. I managed to do it. I don't think it was all that effectual, but, you know, if nothing else, I can remind people that having any experience shared with somebody else has the opportunity of making that shared experience a little lighter, a little more bearable. I often tell people, you know, I can't move a couch by myself, but if I've got somebody else on the other end, it gets done. So That's just a thought. From my solo position here in the bunker, and I hope all of you have a great rest of your day and rest of your week and rest of your lives. I thank you for your lives. What a great line. You can look it up if you want to know who said it. I'm quoting someone, as usual. I very rarely have a thought that someone hasn't already thought, but I do what I can to synthesize them into new structures. And it's a little after half an hour of talking, so I'm going to cut it here. Thank you so much. Out from the bunker, Hair Wings Live.